The morning sun poured through the massive glass windows of Skyrise Industries' aviation hangar, turning the polished helicopter blades into gleaming mirrors. The air buzzed with energy. The company's employees were gathered for the grand unveiling of their latest pride, a state-of-the-art corporate helicopter. At the center of attention stood Ava Morgan, the 29-year-old CEO known for her brilliance, confidence, and sharp tongue. She wore a crisp white blazer, her heels clicking against the concrete floor as she moved through the crowd of executives. Cameras flashed as she smiled for the press, effortlessly charming everyone around her. To most, Ava was perfection, intelligent, driven, and born into power. But beneath that flawless image was a woman who had learned to guard her pride like armor. She never let anyone see weakness. As the employees laughed and celebrated, someone quietly mopped near the back of the hangar. Ethan Cole, the janitor. He was in his late 30s, tall but modestly dressed in a worn uniform, his hands rough from years of labor. He worked silently, avoiding eye contact, blending into the background as if he wasn't even there. Most people ignored him, but not Ava, at least, not today. She caught him glancing toward the helicopter for a moment, his expression unreadable. Something about it made her smirk. "Hey, you," she called out, her voice echoing off the metal walls. "Janitor!" Everyone turned. Ethan paused mid-swipe, looking up slowly. "Yes, ma'am?" Ava folded her arms, her tone playful, but laced with arrogance. "Tell me, do you even know what this is?" She pointed toward the sleek black helicopter, its rotor blades gleaming under the lights. Ethan's gaze shifted toward the machine. Respectful, almost reverent. "Looks like a Bell 429, he said calmly. "Light twin engine, good for corporate use. Handles well in strong winds." The laughter that followed was immediate and sharp. Ava raised her eyebrows. "Oh, really? Our janitor knows models of helicopters now? Did you read that off a brochure while mopping?" Ethan didn't react. His voice was low but steady. "No, ma'am. You just don't forget something you've flown before." The laughter stopped for a split second. Then someone chuckled again, thinking he was joking. Ava tilted her head. "Flown before? That's cute. Tell you what," she said with a mischievous grin. "If you can fly this helicopter, I'll give you a raise." Someone from the engineering team shouted, "Make it more interesting." Ava's grin widened. "All right then, to fly this helicopter." She paused for dramatic effect. "And I'll marry you myself." The room erupted in laughter. Phones were pulled out. People recorded, thinking they were witnessing the humiliation of the year. But Ethan didn't laugh. He simply set his mop aside, wiped his hands on his shirt, and started walking toward the helicopter. Ava blinked. "Wait, he's serious?" she whispered to her assistant. He climbed up the small step, pulled open the cockpit door, and slid into the pilot's seat like he had done it 1,000 times before. His hands moved with quiet confidence, flipping switches, checking gauges. His posture changed. He didn't look like a janitor anymore. Ava frowned, glancing at her head of engineering. "Is the ignition even active?" the man stammered. "Yeah, but he can't—" Before he could finish, the low hum of the engines filled the hangar. The rotor blades began to spin, faster and faster, their rhythmic thump echoing through the room. The laughter died instantly. Ethan's eyes stayed focused ahead, calm and unwavering. His left hand gripped the collective, his right hand the cyclic. In one smooth, practiced motion, the helicopter lifted slightly off the ground, hovering effortlessly, stable, balanced. Ava's mouth fell open. The aircraft floated a few feet above the hangar floor. The wind from the rotors whipped through everyone's hair and scattered papers into the air. Ethan adjusted his controls and gently set the helicopter back down, soft, smooth, flawless. Then, as if nothing happened, he powered it off and stepped out. The entire hangar was silent. The only sound was the slow ticking of the cooling engine. He stood tall, his shirt sleeve slightly rolling up as he reached for his mop again. And that's when Ava saw it. The tattoo inked into his forearm, a pair of wings, a number, and words that sent a chill down her spine. U.S. Army Airborne Division. It wasn't just a design. It was a badge of honor, the mark of a combat pilot. Ava stared at him, stunned. "You were military?" she finally whispered. Ethan met her gaze for the first time that day. "Used to be," he said quietly. "Long time ago." He picked up his mop and started walking away, leaving behind a hangar full of silent, embarrassed faces. No one laughed. No one spoke. The same people who mocked him now watched with a strange mixture of guilt and awe. Ava felt her chest tighten. For the first time in her career, she had gone too far. Not just as a boss, but as a human being. She had mocked a man who clearly carried more courage and experience than most of them combined. She tried to call after him. "Wait, Ethan, But he didn't turn around. He simply kept walking, the echo of his footsteps mixing with the hum of cooling engines. Ava stood frozen, her heart pounding. Her assistant muttered nervously, "Ma'am, should I delete the footage?" She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, still staring at the spot where Ethan had stood. "Let them see it. Let them all see who they laughed at." That night, the video spread across the company like wildfire, the janitor who flew the CEO's helicopter. But for Ava Morgan, it wasn't just a viral moment. It was a mirror held up to her pride, and the first spark of a story that would change both of their lives forever. The next morning, Skyrise Industries felt different. The usual chatter and laughter in the hallways were replaced by awkward whispers and stolen glances. Everyone had seen the video, the janitor who flew the CEO's helicopter like a pro. It wasn't just a small clip anymore. It had gone viral overnight. Thousands of views, comments calling him the silent pilot, the humble hero, and the janitor who taught a CEO a lesson. But Ethan Cole didn't care. He arrived at work as usual, his face calm, eyes tired. He didn't check his phone, didn't respond to anyone's curious looks. He simply picked up his mop and started cleaning the hall near the executive offices. For him, nothing had changed. But for Ava Morgan, everything had. She couldn't sleep. The image of Ethan's tattoo kept replaying in her mind, U.S. Army Airborne Division. She had Googled it late at night, realizing it belonged to one of the most elite helicopter units in the world. Those men flew into war zones where no one else dared to go. The thought that she had mocked someone like that burned her with shame. By noon, she finally gathered the courage to go find him. She spotted him near the maintenance area, alone as always, cleaning a floor that didn't even look dirty. "Ethan," she said softly. He stopped but didn't turn. "Ma'am," she hesitated. "Can we talk?" He glanced at her, polite, unreadable. "Yes, ma'am." Ava motioned toward a nearby bench outside the hangar. The air smelled faintly of oil and metal, the hum of machinery filling the silence. She sat down, unsure where to begin. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "What I did yesterday was cruel. I thought I was being funny, but I wasn't." Ethan gave a small nod. "It's all right." "No, it's not," Ava insisted. "I embarrassed you in front of everyone. I made a joke at your expense without knowing a thing about you." He was quiet for a long time. Then with a faint smile, he said, "You're not the first person to judge me by my uniform. Won't be the last." Ava looked down at her hands. "You were military, weren't you?" Ethan sighed, resting his elbows on his knees. "I was. 10 years in the U.S. Army Airborne Division. I flew Blackhawks in Afghanistan. Rescue missions, medevacs, night ops. Some of the best men I ever knew didn't make it home." His voice was steady, but there was weight behind every word. "One mission," he continued quietly. "We were sent to extract civilians from a valley under heavy fire. My co-pilot, Mason, was like a brother to me. We'd flown dozens of missions together. But that day," he paused, his jaw tightening, "we got hit. Lost hydraulics midair. He managed to stabilize us long enough for me to land. But when I turned to check on him," Ava swallowed hard. "He didn't make it?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, he saved 6 people that day. And I walked away. I couldn't live with that. So I left. No medals, no fanfare. I just walked away and never looked back." A long silence fell between them. The distant sound of tools clanking echoed through the hangar. Ava felt a lump rise in her throat. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Ethan gave a faint smile, trying to lighten the moment. "Don't be. I clean floors now. Easier than dodging bullets." Ava looked at him, half smiling, half sad. "You could have been flying for any top company. Why here? Why stay a janitor?" He looked out at the helicopter glinting under the sun. "Because peace is quieter down here," he said simply. "And sometimes, flying again just hurts." Ava nodded slowly. "Maybe, but hiding from the sky doesn't make the pain go away." He looked at her for a moment, surprised. No one had ever said that to him before. That day marked a subtle shift. Over the next few weeks, Ava began noticing Ethan more, not as an employee, but as a person. She'd see him helping younger mechanics, fixing small issues others overlooked. Always calm, always patient. One afternoon, she found him alone in the hangar again, running his hand over the helicopter's frame. "You miss it, don't you?" she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Every day." Ava's eyes sparkled with an idea. "Then maybe it's time to stop running from what you love." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She grinned. "Teach me to fly." Ethan chuckled. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. I made a deal, remember? Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you." She smirked playfully. "I'm not saying marriage, but I'll settle for flying lessons." He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. "All right, Ms. Morgan, but don't say I didn't warn you. It's not as easy as it looks." The following weekend, the hangar doors opened to the golden light of morning. Ava climbed into the co-pilot seat nervously as Ethan guided her through the controls. Left hand on the collective. Right hand on the cyclic. Feet on the pedals. Gentle movements. The helicopter's like a living thing. Treat it with respect, or it'll fight back. Ava concentrated, sweat forming on her forehead as the engine roared to life. Ethan's calm voice guided her through every movement. The blades began to spin, the hangar filling with the deep rhythmic beat of flight. "Easy now. Lift slowly." The ground began to slip away. Ava gasped, her hands trembling. "I'm doing it. Oh my God, I'm actually doing it." Ethan smiled. "You're flying." She turned to look at him, excitement in her eyes, and for a brief second, he saw something familiar there. Determination, courage, the same fire that burned in the eyes of pilots who never gave up. For Ava, the sky wasn't just freedom, it was redemption. When they landed, the hangar erupted with applause from a few staff who had watched in secret. Ava laughed, exhilarated. "That was incredible!" Ethan smiled. "Told you it wasn't so hard." She turned to him, a soft, genuine smile replacing her usual corporate confidence. "Thank you. For trusting me." He nodded. "Thank you for reminding me what trust feels like." From that day, their relationship changed. She stopped calling him the janitor. To her, he was Captain Ethan Cole. A month later, during the company's annual gala, Ava stood on stage addressing her employees. "This year taught me that leadership isn't about standing above others. It's about learning from those who've lived more than you could ever imagine." She paused, looking toward Ethan in the crowd. "And sometimes the greatest heroes wear the simplest uniforms." The audience turned as she gestured toward him. "Please welcome Captain Ethan Cole, our new head of aviation training and safety." The room erupted in applause. Ethan stood awkwardly, modest as always, but this time his eyes glistened. Later that evening, Ava found him standing near the helicopter again, under the dim lights. She smiled. "So, Captain, if I say fly this helicopter and I'll marry you, do I have to keep my promise now?" Ethan laughed softly. "Careful what you promise, Ms. Morgan. I might just take you seriously this time." And as they stood together, watching the reflection of the spinning blades dance across the hangar walls, it wasn't just about a challenge or a joke anymore. It was about second chances for both of them. Because sometimes, the people we overlook carry the wings that can lift us higher than we ever dreamed.